What's happening? Happy Friday to everybody. Thanks for joining me as always. And let's kick this thing off right with a super chat from Charlie. Happy Friday, everyone. $10 super chat. Enjoy the holiday. Let's go Celtics. Domestic macro brews with this money only Nick. Thank you, Charlie. I am planning on in just a few hours to head out with the wife and enjoy this beautiful day with some nice cold beer. So looking forward to the weekend. Thank you for that super chat. And that's how we kick things off. All right, we'll talk about the Patriots, of course, coming up in a little bit. We will also talk about Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals last night. Celtics victorious 126-110. But I've got some personal news that I wanted to share with you, and it's kind of funny. None of my family actually know this outside of my wife, but I just found out over the last 24 hours or so, I'm going to have an opportunity that's pretty cool. So I mentioned yesterday on the podcast that there will be no podcasts next Monday and Tuesday because of the holiday. I wanted to take an extended break. Well, I'm not really going to be taking an extended break. Actually, on Monday morning, you can listen to me on 98.5 The Sports Hub from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's Memorial Day morning. I get it. Many of you might have to catch up a little bit later in the day. But I will actually be on 98.5 The Sports Hub with Ryan Johnston and Kendra Middleton on Monday from 6A to 10A. So excited to get that opportunity. It's no full-time thing. It's nothing huge or anything, but it's an opportunity. And I thank every single one of you who have invested your time in this channel, with this podcast, watching the YouTube channel, liking it, commenting, subscribing, keeping me going. Because if it wasn't for this, I'm not so sure I'd get an opportunity on Monday at 98.5 The Sports Hub. So very excited about that. I'll be on the air 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Monday. You can check us out on the radio, or you can check us out, of course, on YouTube. All right, we'll get into the Patriots again in a little while, but let's start with Game 2. 126-110, Celtics win. They're up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Indiana Pacers. And really, expectations were met last night. I mentioned this during the podcast yesterday. I absolutely anticipated a couple of things. I thought the Celtics would be better defensively. I thought they would be more consistent on the defensive end. I thought they would be better in transition, especially on the defensive end. Well, check, and check, right? I also mentioned that I thought the Celtics would shoot better in Game 2 than they shot in Game 1. I thought they missed a lot of really good looks in Game 1. And if they continue to touch the paint in Game 2 and create those kinds of threes, those open threes, those corner threes, if they continue to create shots like they got in Game 1, it was only a matter of time that they would shoot better and score more in Game 2. There we had it right there last night. Paint touches, great shots, 40.5% from three. So they shot better. When you look at the second half especially, they really stepped it up. And that's because they were playing the game the right way. Now, of course, it would have been ugly if they did not get the offensive rebounding game and effort that they got in the first quarter and a half of last night. The offensive glass kept the Celtics in the game early because they got off to a very slow start. And it wasn't necessarily bad shots. It was just they weren't making any shots. They were missing some wide open looks. They were missing good looks, but thankfully, their energy and their effort on the glass was there. That gave them some second chance opportunities, and with those opportunities, they put points up on the board. They survived the early shooting struggles, and then they got it going as the game went on, and as water found its level, the Celtics played better and better, made more shots, and we know what ended up happening. Jaylen Brown, statement game. I have a column that just went up at Boston Sports Journal this week, and there is a part within that column about Jaylen Brown. Check that out. It's free. It is free access at Boston Sports Journal, my column every Friday. And I wrote about Jaylen Brown this week. And what I wrote about Jaylen was that he's overlooked. He's underappreciated. And I mentioned yesterday that he should have been on an all-NBA team. He should have absolutely been on an all-NBA team this year. This was his best season of his NBA career, in my opinion. The scoring was down, but the shooting was up. The defense was as good as it's ever been, if not better, from game 1 to game 82. I thought he deserved to be on the All-NBA team, at least one of the three. And obviously, he took that a little bit personal. And he might not sit there and tell everybody that he took it personal, but he went out there and he made a statement with his play last night. I am better than the guys that made at least the third All-NBA team. And that was a statement game from Jaylen Brown. 40 points, 5 rebounds. They say he had 2 assists. 2 assists. Don't believe the 2 assists. I thought he moved the basketball really well. Joe Mazzulla brought up the hockey assist last night, and I thought it was a great point. There were many hockey assists from Brown last night, and what I loved the best about Jaylen Brown was he was decisive. He was making decisions quickly, and they were the right decisions. He wasn't messing around. There weren't too many moments where it was, I'm going to dribble for 5 seconds between my legs, behind my back, and get in my bag. There was some of that, but there wasn't a lot of it. He was making fast decisions, and he was just tremendous last night. I mean, my freaking word. His rim reads were on point. He shot almost 52% from the floor. He shot 40% from 3. I thought he was relentless. JB was relentless last night. From the jump ball to the very end of the game when he got taken out. He was relentlessly attacking. He was attacking on the offensive side, and I also thought defensively, it might sound weird, but he was attacking on the defensive end as well. He was paying attention to backdoor cuts. He took the challenge, late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter. He took the challenge to defend Pascal Siakam. Siakam ran out of gas. He had to have an early rest in the fourth quarter. Never came back. So Jaylen Brown was relentless on both ends. He was ridiculous in transition. He killed the Pacers last night in transition, and he really was effective at all 3 levels scoring the ball. He was attacking the rim when appropriate. Again, he was making the right rim reads so he can drive and dish, but he was attacking at the basket. He was scoring in the restricted area. He hit a couple of really tough mid-range jump shots to start the second half to get the Celtics going. So he showed you that ability to score in the mid-range that we know he has. And he shot 40% from 3, all 3 levels. At the bucket, mid-range, 3-point land, he was awesome. His energy, he was a force. And he carried the Celtics in the first half. I'll get to Jason Tatum in a minute, but we have another super chat. Backyard Cyclist, $10 super chat. Congratulations, Nick, on being on 98.5. Enjoy your weekend. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you for the congratulations. Again, it's Monday morning. It's a single opportunity. I hope to make the most of it, but I will be on 98.5 The Sports Hub on Memorial Day morning with Ryan Johnson and Kendra Middleton. Looking forward to it. I actually was at 98.5 when the radio station began back in the day. I was there. So I was there for a while. And so I'm very, very excited to get back there. But again, it's a carry. I'm getting a carry, and I'll make the most of it if I can. But I appreciate the congratulations, and really, really looking forward to that show, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on 98.5 on Monday. You can check it out on YouTube. Don't forget, 98.5 The Sports Hub is now on YouTube. They're crushing it over the last month, so check us out there if you'd like. All right, Jason Tatum. His first half was one of the worst halves of basketball I have seen Jason Tatum play. That's not hyperbolic. It was one of the worst halves of basketball I've seen him have in the history of his NBA career as a Celtic. He was just downright wretched in that first half. Downright wretched. He was 2 of 8 from the floor. He was 0 of 2 from 3. I had him down for 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. He had 3 turnovers. But the biggest thing, and I always say this because everybody pays attention to the shooting. They pay attention to the counting stats. I'm not as worried about the shooting with Tatum. And that's why I made the point, through this postseason that I think he's played really well because he's been engaged. The number one thing you look for with Tatum to know if he's engaged or not is rebounding. If he's rebounding at a high level, that means he is engaged. He's embracing the challenge. His energy is there. His effort is there. He's ready. And so last night, 2 rebounds in the first half, I thought told you everything you needed to know about Tatum's engagement level. It just wasn't there. It wasn't there on the glass. It wasn't there offensively. And most of the disappointment from me, really, because you could say, all right, well, maybe he wasn't as aggressive in the first half scoring because Jaylen had it going. What really bothered me, aside from the rebounding, was his defense. Tatum did not show effort defensively in that first half. He let guys blow by him. He looked like he didn't want to be there in moments. He was in a coma. He was brutal in the first half. Brutal. In the first half, the Pacers, with Tatum as a primary defender, they shot 5 of 7 from the floor. So that was the worst half of basketball I've seen Tatum have in, I can't even remember how long, maybe ever, as a Celtic. But then there was the second half, which we'll get to in a minute. But before we get to that, want to remind you that this podcast, this program, is brought to you by our friends at Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. 9 maps, 30-plus acres of land, multiple villages, hilltop forts. They've got paintball, they've got airsoft, they've got kid versions of both paintball and airsoft, something for every age group starting at 6+. You just show up, jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt, and they will take care of the rest, okay? They will take care of you. Low-key, casual, everything is set up for beginners, so just in case you're new to everything, again, they will take care of you. They have a tremendous staff. Check them out. North Kingston, Rhode Island. I mean, the weather is beautiful today. Find a weekend. Family, friends, go do something different. Go play some paintball, airsoft. Go check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, North Kingston, Rhode Island. Give them a call, 401-228-6366. That's 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. Trust me, I will get to the Patriots. I know a lot of you are waiting for the Patriots talk. We will get to the Patriots and their new offensive toys. I want to dig a little bit deeper than we have on some of the guys that have joined during this offseason. But back to the Celtics for now. JT's second half, he was a different guy. He shot 7 of 12 from the floor. He still was not good from 3. He was 1 for 5. I do think he settled for 2 or 3 threes. I thought he settled for a jump shot at one point. But in the second half, he was a different guy. 7 of 12, 1 of 5. You know, he had, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He only turned the basketball over once in the second half, and he was engaged on both ends. What he was missing in the first half on the defensive end, right, that engagement, that energy, that effort, it was there in the second half. The rebounding was there in the second half. Twice as many rebounds in the second half than the first half. And I thought that showed some really good mental fortitude. Tatum knew that he was awful in the first half. He came back in the second half. Was he spectacular? No, he wasn't, but he was much better. He woke up, and he had a good third quarter, got it going a little bit in the fourth quarter, but he did enough to help his team in the second half, and he really worked himself out of a terrible game. And I love that. I appreciate that, right? When you have a half like he had in the first half, it's easy to tap out, give up, or continue to play that way. But he didn't. He went out there in the second half, and he showed his professionalism, and I thought that, he met the moment as much as I would hope he would in stretches in that second half, and he was good enough. So I hated the first half. He stunk out loud in that first half. There's no other way to put it. He was god-awful. But he showed up in the second half, and he got it going. Drew Holiday, he gave the game what it needs, as Paul Pierce would say, right? Holiday always just shows up, big shot. He's been just awesome in the last 4 or 5 postseason games. I dove into Drew Holiday a little bit deeper on the Patreon podcast on Wednesday night. That's exclusive to Patreon members. You can check out that channel, $5 a month. But I went over the numbers. The first, 6 or 7 postseason games, Holiday wasn't shooting well. He wasn't really doing much at all. And then as soon as KP went out, Derek White stepped up for a few games, the end of the Miami series, beginning of the Cleveland series, and then Holiday just took over from there. And he's been awesome the last 4 or 5 games. And again, last night he was awesome. 15 points, 10 assists. He only missed 1 shot from the floor. He was 3 or 4 from 3. And I saw a statistic last night that was bananas. The Celtics this year, they are 31-1. 31-1 when Drew Holiday scores 14 or more points. 31 wins in 1 loss when Holiday scores 14 or more. He scored 15 last night. Pretty much write it down as a win. Derek White woke up in the second half, finished with 23, 4, and 6. He was really good. Shot 8 of 15 from the floor. He was very efficient, 4 of 8 from 3 after a slow start. And O'Shea Brissett. I mentioned this on yesterday's podcast, that I would love to see O'Shea Brissett for 6, 7, 8 minutes. Nothing crazy. Don't play him 20. And I think some of it, at least some of his appearance last night, had to do with the Luke Cornett injury in the first half. But Brissett got his chance, and he did exactly what I thought he would do. He brought the energy. He brought the effort. He's better defensively because he can switch. He's obviously much more athletic than Luke Cornett is, which I think with this specific matchup, much like Cleveland's with Evan Mobley, I think Brissett can play in this series and give you a good 8 to 10 minutes, and he proved it last night. He was a plus 18. So shout out to O'Shea Brissett, who was ready. That dude hardly plays, and he was given the opportunity in last night's game, like I'm getting the opportunity on Monday morning on 98.5 The Sports Up from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and he made the most of it. And hopefully I make the most of my opportunity like Brissett did last night. Second game blues, gone. Second game blues, gone. And I said yesterday I was optimistic. I thought this team would get the game 2 monkey off their back. They did it last night. Tyrese Halliburton tweaked his hamstring. John Corrales of Boston Sports Journal and the Locked On Celtics podcast. John does a great job. He mentioned last night that he saw Halliburton in the postgame and he was limping pretty badly. So we'll have to keep an eye on Halliburton and his status for tomorrow night. But let's not forget, Indiana undefeated at home this postseason. They're no joke. So the Celtics, they have to show up. They have to play serious basketball. They have to be engaged. They have to have urgency and effort from the jump. They cannot walk out there, especially if Halliburton isn't playing or he's not the same guy. They can't go out there and take it for granted. That would be a gigantic mistake. They're going to look up, and this series will be 2-1 if they just go out there and roll the basketball out and expect to win. They have to show up with the proper intensity tomorrow night because Indiana is going to be loud and Indiana is going to be ready. All right, we'll get to the Patriots. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up on the YouTube page. Again, all of your support means the world to me. It's one of the reasons why I am getting this opportunity at 98.5 on Monday morning. It's because all of you supported this podcast, kept this going, and allowed me to survive, so to speak, for 9 months, 10 months. We'll keep it rolling. We'll keep it going. But that support, that investment helped me get this opportunity. So I appreciate all of you for that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We are now at 3,250 plus subscribers, trying to get to 3,500, hopefully, fingers crossed, by mandatory minicamp. It's going to be very difficult to do that. Rate and review, Spotify, Apple Pods. And for Patreon members, by the way, in just a few hours, be on the lookout for the debut episode of Off the Cuff. New podcast, talk national sports, talk personal life, talk professional life, talk about radio. Off the Cuff debuts later today. All right, let's move to the Patriots. I'm excited for 3 newcomers. That was a little bit repetitive. I'm excited for 3 newcomers. There we go. To this offense. Antonio Gibson, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker. Those 3 guys can really bring playmaking to the forefront of this offense. And I was watching my buddy Phil Perry's Next Pat's podcast this week, and he had Jim Nagy on from the Senior Bowl. And Jim said that he knows for a fact, after talking to guys with the Patriots and talking to that front office, he knows that one of the main priorities was we need to get playmakers. We absolutely need to get playmakers in this offense. And so Gibson, Polk, and Baker, I think, fit the bill. Gibson is almost forgotten because he signed so early in free agency. He's one of the first moves of Elliott Wolf's tenure. It happened so early. Then we had the draft. It's like he's the forgotten man. But I do think Gibson could pay big-time dividends for this offense. He can help them. And Evan Lazar wrote about Gibson this week after watching him at OTAs on Monday. And Lazar wrote, during the spring, a few skilled players always catch the eye. Some don't pan out, but Gibson has enough proven NFL production to treat this differently. The free agent addition was active in the passing game and showed some juice. He looks like a natural pairing alongside Ramondre Stevenson in the Kareem Hunt role to Stevenson's Nick Chubb. Evan Lazar's writing to the football gods hopefully they get sent out into the ether, and Stevenson will remind us of Nick Chubb. I know Evan wasn't saying he's Nick Chubb. I get it. It's a little jokey joke. But I do think Antonio Gibson is the perfect complement and fit within this offense and alongside Stevenson. He checks all the third down back boxes that you want him to check. He's very good in pass protection. He's absolutely good enough runner to pick up first downs. And he's got versatility as a receiver. He's a deadly receiver. He has yak capability, which we've talked about. Alex Van Pelt's offense loves yards after the catch, and Gibson gives you some of that yak. So that's good. He can hunt defenses downfield. You can hunt matchups with him because of that versatility. You can line Gibson up into the slot. You can line up as the Z. You can line up even outside from time to time and try to get like a linebacker out there against him. And he can obviously catch the football out of the backfield. So that versatility and ability to catch the football and create after catching the football, it's just huge. I mean, we went so many years. We went, 3-4 years, if not longer, without a true third down back. And I think Gibson will get some run on early downs as well. Don't get it twisted. But to have that guy on third down who can pass protect, catch the football, and has some jitterbug to him, has some juice, as Lazar wrote, that's something that's been missing from this Patriots offense since James White. So it was an absolute need, and I think Gibson fills that need very well. And he complements Stevenson and Stevenson's style. The biggest issue, fumbles. Got to make sure he doesn't fumble the football. He had some major issues fumbling the football in Washington last year. He's got to make sure he tightens that up. All right, we'll get to Polk and Baker in a minute. Their potential as a combination. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. So I spent some time this week talking about Jaylen Polk. I want to spend a little bit more time on him, but also on Baker and really how these guys fit together. And I think they fit tremendously well. Matt Harmon, who is an NFL analyst, he was the creator of the reception perception graphs, if you've seen them. He works at Yahoo. He posted this around draft time. The Patriots drafted 2 wide receivers I ranked as priority day 2 options this year in Polk and Baker. Both had some strong indicators in their reception perception profiles and should complement each other from a skill set and deployment perspective. So when we're talking about Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson being complementary, the same exact thing can be said about Polk and Baker. And this is when I always bring up what the Patriots do, right? Does it make sense? It makes sense to bring in Antonio Gibson to be the complement to Ramondre Stevenson. It makes sense to draft Polk and then draft Baker because of how they complement each other. And I'll get into details in a minute. But it just makes sense. And that's how you're going to make this offense work eventually. And when Drake May, is ready to take the keys and he's being developed, along with Baker and Polk, hopefully by, year 2, year 3, these guys are just kicking. But let's talk about the fit. So Baker at UCF, he ran 58% of his routes as 9 routes. Okay, he ran 58%, 9 routes or curl routes. If you're wondering, a 9 route, which was 35.6% of what Baker ran last year at UCF. So 35.6% of his routes were 9 routes last year in college. That's a route where the receiver runs as fast as they can vertically, tries to gain separation from the defender. We're talking fade routes. We're talking go routes. We're talking fly routes. We're talking stake routes. We're talking clear out routes. So Baker ran a lot of 9 routes at UCF. Lots of 9 routes. Meanwhile, Jaylen Polk at Washington, only 12% of his routes were 9 routes. So now you start to see the fit. What Polk ran a lot of, he ran a lot of flats, slants, and comeback routes. Flats, slants, comeback routes accounted for 35% of the routes that Jaylen Polk ran last year at Washington. So when you start to see this, right, you've got one of your rookie receivers that run 9 routes a lot. They go downfield. They try to separate, fade routes, go routes, all that stuff, right? That's Javon Baker. Meanwhile, you've got Jaylen Polk, who runs a lot of the flats, the slants, the comebacks. That's why he's more of the Z. He can play the X, which is the outside guy, right? But Polk is really a great fit as a Z. So you've got Polk playing, I think, Z an awful lot, and you've got Baker playing the X. That's why they fit. That's, if you look at Green Bay, for example, you've got like Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs, I would say, is more of like the Jaylen Polk. Christian Watson is more the Javon Baker. So you get different receivers that are good at different things. It doesn't mean they can't run other routes. It's just, what have they done a lot of, and how does that fit alongside with their new teammates? Javon Baker at UCF last year, he did not run a comeback route or a flat route. He didn't run either of those routes all last year in college. But you've got Polk, who ran plenty of those routes. Baker he ran under 10% slant routes. So again, you've got somebody in Jaylen Polk who will run the slant routes. Complementary pieces. Complementary pieces. Javon Baker, outside. Jaylen Polk, Z. Maybe sometimes X. Can line up different spots and run different routes than Baker does. Complementary pieces. All right, let's close with some Tyquan Thornton comments recently that I wanted to get to. Everybody's been talking about Tyquan Thornton and the weight, the muscle that he has added. He's apparently up to 190. And he said, quote, "I'm putting in work. I feel like I've put on a lot of muscle in a lot of areas that need it. I'm just continuing to get bigger. It's just so I can take more impacts. I feel like all my injuries came from me hitting the ground. So it's so I can be able to bounce back up when I do hit the ground." And of course, Thornton had a broken collarbone in 2022. Last year, he had a shoulder injury. And those things have no doubt gotten in the way of his improvement and what the Patriots had hoped, a development into at least the number 2 receiver. This is a make or break camp for Tyquan Thornton. Make or break. I think all of us would agree on that. If he cannot carve out some kind of niche during this camp, he's done with this football team. He does not have a future here in New England. And he knows that. And that's why you see this effort to put more muscle on, because he knows the injuries have hindered any opportunity he might have had to make his mark the first couple of years. Can't make the club in the tub, right? He's going to stay on the field. He's going to stay healthy. And I feel the same way about Tyquan Thornton that I feel about Juju Smith-Schuster. I know people want to write them off, but it doesn't really do anything for the Patriots if they just get rid of these guys right now. It just doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. I want, Juju comes out and says, I was 60% last year. I feel much better this year. Okay. I'm open to giving him a shot. Let's see if he's healthy. Let's see if he looks like a different guy. Let's see if he can give you some production. Let's see. I'll have to see it to believe it, but you don't lose anything by throwing him out there and seeing how he looks. Same thing with Tyquan Thornton. I need to see it to believe it. But if Thornton and or Smith-Schuster, if they have good camps, they improve their value, which is crucial to the Patriots, because they either improve their value to stay here and actually contribute to the program, or they improve their value and quite possibly you can get a pick for them. You trade them somewhere else. And because they made some plays in the preseason, they looked good in camp, all those things, because they did that, it allows you the opportunity to go out there and get a pick. Go out and get an asset. Even if it's a 6th-round pick. You got Pop Douglas in the 6th, didn't you? You got Jaheim Bell in the 7th. So the lottery tickets aren't a bad thing. So I'm all for Tyquan Thornton and Juju playing well. I want all the good football players at that facility, right? Let them all play well. Let them all be good. If you're picking from a bunch of good players, that's a great thing. It's a great problem to have. I'd much rather have that scenario than have Juju look like Juju last year and Thornton, get hurt again and absolutely stink. And then you just cut those guys. You get nothing for them. It's like, okay, swing and misses. If they could build their value and you can get something for them, you're going to need one of those guys, I think, to be a fifth receiver on this team, unless you give it to Jalen Reagor. I continue to stand by the idea that Kendrick Bourne will be on the PUP list this year. I don't anticipate Kendrick Bourne playing the first month of this season. So you're going to need one of these guys, right? You're going to need one of them to show up. You've got Osborne, you've got Polk, you've got Baker, and you've got Pop. Those four guys, I think, they'll be around. You got to find a fifth with Bourne on the PUP. Unless Bourne is ahead of the curve and he's going to play, then we can, come back to this conversation at a later date. But I am going off of the idea that Bourne is likely going to be sitting out the first month of the season. So it's a great thing if these guys show up and they look good and they play well. More good players is good. Let that wide receiver 5 competition heat up. Let all of those guys in that room push each other. Let Tyquan push Juju. Juju pushes Reagor. Reagor pushes Booty. Let them all keep just pushing each other and battling it out. You want a really good competition in that room. Then you take the best guy and maybe get a pick for another guy or two in that room. So if Tyquan stays healthy, no problem giving him a shot. There's no doubt his development has been hindered by those injuries. And, the coaching. I don't think the wide receivers got the best coaching over the last couple of years. So give him a shot. Absolutely no issue with giving those guys a shot. Flying Elvis jumps in with a chat. 98.5 just improved 100%. Whoop, whoop. If 98.5 makes this permanent, I might start listening to them. If not, I have no reason. Well, I do. I like many of the guys over at 98.5, frankly. I do. So I'm excited again. Opportunity on Monday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. with Ryan Johnson and Kendra Middleton. It's nothing big. It's a carry. I'm getting a carry on Monday morning, thanks to 98.5. So I'll try to make the most of it. And I will say that I appreciate every single one of you for supporting me here and investing your time here, because that made it more of a chance to me to get that opportunity. So Monday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on 98.5 The Sports Hub. You can also check it out on YouTube. You know the deal. All right, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Patreon page, Patreon members, get ready for Off the Cuff. It's coming up in just a couple of hours, a little bit different of a podcast. We look at national stories and we look at some of the personal, professional life of yours truly. We look at some wacky stories as well, some different stuff, some fun stuff. So that's coming up later today. And I would just mention one more thing, and this is very important. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great time. If you're going to cookouts, crush it. If you're spending time with family and friends, cherish it. But don't forget, while we have this extended weekend, don't forget those who lost their lives fighting to allow us to be in this situation with the opportunities that we have to have these cookouts, to drink the beer, to drink the liquor and all that stuff, to have fun, eat the burgers, and do whatever you're going to do this weekend. Do not lose sight of what this weekend is about and why we have Monday to hang out and enjoy. Do not forget those that we have lost. That's my final note. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see what the Celtics do on Saturday night. No podcast until next Wednesday, but you can listen to me Monday morning on 98.5 The Sports Hub. I appreciate you. Really, have a tremendous holiday weekend. Get out there and enjoy this weather. I'm going to in just a few hours. Until next time, it's the Nick Cattle Show.